Man, I am so excited to be with you guys again tonight. I promised you that I would be back here again the next day, and here I am. Because I'm going to talk to you about the Varroa destructor mite. A lot of you are starting out as new beginners, or maybe you're an experienced beekeeper, but this is your greatest battle, or maybe your greatest enemy that you don't know about yet. Either way, we're going to talk about that today. Before we get started, though, got to put this hive back together. As you can see, when I was in Bobblehead David, I was working this little hive. So let's put our queen excluder back on, and let's put our honey super back on. Inner cover. Do I use inner covers? I want to ask all my loyal subscribers, do I use inner covers? I don't use inner covers. All right, so we'll put our top cover on, and there we go. Now, I got to pour a cup of coffee because I feel like it out of my French press. Remember, those of you that might be new, I actually roast my own beans. I grind my own beans. I make my own coffee. Love it, love it, love it. Now, let's talk about the Varroa destructor mite. Before we get started today, you'll be noticing that I'm going page by page by a document that I worked on all day long for you guys. And it talks about all these great bullet points that we're going to be talking about today. We won't go into great details, but like the history. I'm not going to get into the history of the Varroa destructor mite. It's going to be available. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get this document that I created. But talk about the history of it, and we're going to talk about the impact of the Varroa mite on the colony, natural methods of dealing with the Varroa destructor mite, as well as more of the chemicals that we use to treat for mites. Going to talk about how we test for mite. I got some show and tell items because I'm going to be talking about breaking the queen's brood cycle by pushing this push-in cage in and actually confining the queen for 7 days. I'm going to also be talking about, I got away from my microphone, be also talking about a green drone comb. And this is how we trap mites. It's a very effective method to help control mites naturally without the use of chemicals. Talking about a screen bottom board. And today, if you're interested in getting a screen bottom board from us, the first 5 people who order a screen bottom board today will get one of these. And it looks like, well, what kind of thing is that? Matches the set and matches my shirt. But it's actually not a back scratcher. Well, it is, but that's not what it's made for. It's actually, you need it now. You need this today. And you need to get all these dead bees that are dying of natural causes. You can just rake all the dead bees out with this little plastic hook. Pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, so let's get right into it and start talking about the Varroa destructor mite. What I really want to be known for is somebody on YouTube that doesn't bore you to death with all the scientific, deep in the weeds facts about Varroa mites that really aren't going to help you out that much. I don't want to do that. It's available. I've got a lot of it available in this document that I created that we can go more into it, but I'm not going to do it here on YouTube. If you want to download this, check it. It'll be in the links in the description below. But you can actually download it and get better educated on the Varroa destructor mite. But I really want you to do that on your time. I want you to spend your time when you're studying to study this document. I think it's 6 pages, and you can get a lot of information here. I have spent a lot of time documenting and getting some facts, bullet points ready for this document. So it's really good to finally get it in paper like that. I also have an online mite control course that you can drill down even more into controlling mites. But this is YouTube, so we're going to just really take you into like maybe a 3-mile high view to get an overview of it and the basic facts of what we should know about the Varroa destructor mite. Well, the first thing that you want to know, and I know that you want to know this, is it really that big of a deal? And it really doesn't seem to be a big deal because to the average beekeeper with average eyesight, you really don't see that your bees have mites. And you don't notice any bees suffering from mites because they don't really show signs of being weak or having mites or anything. I've heard so many beekeepers tell me, my bees don't have mites. I don't see any. A lot of people start talking to me about mites that they have. They talk about, oh, I've got all these mites. Every time I open up my hive, all these mites go running. They just take off and run. I can see them running everywhere. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, that's not mites. Those are small hive beetle. Mites are tons smaller. than a small hay beetle. So a lot of times people are just confused. And so let's look at an image right here. And you can see here how little mites are. Here are some mites that are on this developing, I believe it's a drone pupa, and it has 3 or 4 mites on it. And what's really bad about these mites are, even though, let me take a taste of coffee here. Oh yeah, that's so good. But when you look at this picture, you can see how gross that is, but it really looks a little innocent. I mean, a couple of bugs on a bug. What's so bad about that? They have these piercing pieces on their front part of their body, their mouth, between the front 2 legs that pierces into these bees that are developing, even into adult bees. And they will actually tap into the hemolymph, the blood, the fat bodies of bees, and they will begin to extract out fat body material or blood from bees. And that's terrible when you stop and think about it, because bees don't heal like we do when we're punctured. And so that wound generally will just stay open to the bee. And what happens then is an injured bee is not a healthy bee. And a lot of these viruses that we talk about, there's over 20 viruses that the Varroa destructor mite can spread. And so that's really, really bad for your bees. Bees with viruses at first don't really show signs that they're suffering from mites and the viruses that these mites vector or pass around, transmit around. Your bees might look okay. And you think, well, my bees are doing good. Mites aren't hurting them. But really, I have found in my experience is that when mites really take their toll on bees, it can be as early as the summer or the fall, but generally always it catches up to us in the wintertime. And that's because these viruses have a way of taking half the lifespan off of a bee. And so if a bee lives for 5 to 6 months, it's a winter bee, they're only going to live 3 months. And then halfway through winter, your bees die and you wonder why. There's plenty of honey. They just all died. I don't know what happened. And so without blaming the mite, we start thinking of other things. So it's important that we realize that even though we can't see the damage of what this mite is doing, they are damaging our colonies by spreading a lot of these viruses and making our bees really sick. All of us know that the most important thing about keeping a healthy colony is keeping a strong and well-laying queen in the hive, keeping our mite levels very low, and feeding our bees in the seasons when they need fed. This is one of the 3 things that we need to be controlling. Okay, so all of you are probably wondering, David, I'm kind of new to this, or I'm new to the idea of mites, and all right, you talked me into thinking about it. What do I need to do about mites? You know what? Here's what I want you to know. First of all, don't even consider any sort of treatments about mites until you test for mites. I really think all of us should test first, find out what our number is, how many mites do we have per 100 bees, develop a threshold in our mind about what we're willing to tolerate. And generally speaking, in the beekeeping community, a hobbyist usually wants to keep that number between 1 to 3 mites maximum per 100 bees. That's still a lot of mites on your bees if you have 3 per 100 bees. That's still really high, a lot of spreading of viruses. So you can keep it lower than that, down to 1% or 1 mite. That's really going to help us tremendously. So first of all, you have to develop a skill for testing your mites. Now, all summer long, I made videos about this. I'll leave some links in the description below, and you can follow those links. Those links are also in this document. If you download this document, I've got the links in there on testing, different ways that I test. You can watch me do it. I think it's important for us to test for mites. You're going to have to decide in your heart whether you test with an alcohol wash, and that requires us sacrificing 300 bees once a month to do a mite test. Now, the queen's laying 2,000 bees a day in the season. So however you feel philosophically or morally about killing 300 bees to do an alcohol wash once a month, you're going to have to make that decision. It took me a long time to come to a decision that I would do an alcohol wash. I was using powdered sugar test And I have video links in this document about me comparing a alcohol wash to a powdered sugar wash, which one is better. And I kind of got mixed results. Sometimes they were equal. Sometimes the alcohol wash was better, or the Dawn soap wash gave me a higher count of mites than my sugar roll might have given. But when you do the powdered sugar, it doesn't kill bees. The way I look at it when I'm trying to justify in my heart whether I should kill 300 bees to do an alcohol wash is that honeybees, the colony is a single organism made up of many individual organisms. But, I feel like the human body is an organism made up of cells. And if someone were to have a disease and needed to be treated, such as cancer, a lot of times the cancer treatment destroys good cells as well as the runaway bad cells. And so that's a sacrifice willingly we make in order to keep the total organism healthy and to have many future years ahead of us. And I feel like that way with bees, that if we sacrifice 300 bees for a test that will keep the whole colony going, that is justifiable in my mind. Bees do that naturally anyway. When they're being attacked by a predator, bees go out with their stinger and sting the predator, and they lose their life for the good of the entire colony to continue on for years in the future. So I sort of rationalize it out that way, but you make your own decision. You can use a powdered sugar test or an alcohol wash and come up with a number and begin watching what kind of rise in population you're going to see with your mite levels. Now, really to be a beekeeper, a few videos back, I've been talking more about raising your own queens, and I've got some more videos to make in the future for you guys on queen rearing. But I told you that why not think of yourself not only as a beekeeper, but as a queen keeper. You're raising queens, you're keeping queens healthy. Well, we have to venture out and say not only are we beekeepers, but we're really keepers of mites. At least we don't want to keep them. We want to get rid of them. But we go out there and so we're actually studying and monitoring and inspecting for mites as much as we are our bees. Typically speaking, when I look into a hive and I begin to inspect it, I really don't see a lot wrong with the colony, and most of my colonies are pretty healthy. I rarely would I see anything like chalk brood, foul brood, or any type of sac brood, any problems that I would think, oh no, my bees have a disease. I don't really see that, but I do see, I've got a mite count that's creeping up on me. What do I do? Because they're spreading viruses. You can't see viruses, and oftentimes you can't see the result of viruses. Now, look at this little bee. You can see deformed wing virus. See how the wings looked? They look kind of burned off. They look shriveled up. So deformed wing viruses is something that these mites do transfer around with other viruses as well. And once these mites are under control, these viruses can linger on. So we need to keep our mite levels low all year long, all season long, as much as we can. Hey, I know this is something that you didn't expect maybe when you got into beekeeping, but it is what it is. We got to do our part. For example, let's say you use something like this. I enjoyed using this all summer. And if you have this mite test kit, this Ceracell tester, then it's a good little unit to test your mites with. It comes with a little cup here. You can dip up about 300 of the nurse bees that you want off your brood frames. And then you can put them in this basket, and then you can pour the alcohol in, or already have it in there, clamp it down, shake it around, and then you can just hold it up and start counting the number of mites on the bottom, and that will tell you how many mites you have. If I find these, I'll leave a link in the description below where you can purchase those. But that's a great little kit that you can use to test for your mites. So let's say you tested 300 bees and you start counting the mites on the bottom there, and you find that you have 15 mites on 300 bees. Here's the way to do the math. The simple way is to just look and say, okay, I got 15 mites on 300 bees, but you want the final number to be 100 bees. Well, this is simple. You just divide by 3. So we divide 300 by 3 and we get 100. We take 15 divided by 3 and get 5. So now we have 5 mites per 100 bees. That's a 5% infestation level. That 5%, if that was your case and your numbers, that's the number that tells you, I need to do something. Now, what can you do? There are several things you can do before you bring out the big guns of chemicals or treatments that you want to use. So let me share a few of those with you. I've got the green drone comb. This is what it looks like. It's green just to help you find it. And this green drone comb, I explain it in this document, by the way. I'll leave I'll leave a link in the description below. But you essentially just put it in on the outer side of the brood nest area, maybe a frame or 2 or 3 from the wall of a brood box, and allow the bees to draw out the comb. Now the queen measures with her front legs the diameter, the width of these cells, and she realizes they're drone-sized cells, so she doesn't fertilize the egg. I know, that's amazing, isn't it? She must have like a digital readout, like 5.4 millimeters, so I'm not going to fertilize the egg. It'd be a drone. So anyway, she fills this up with drones and drone eggs. And so what happens, why this is so effective is because a drone takes how many days until they emerge from the egg being laid? 24. 3 days longer than a worker bee. So the Varroa destructor realizes that she can stay in these sealed cells of a drone 3 more days, giving her a chance to have more offsprings, possibly 2 or 3 offspring. And so that allows her to develop a bigger family. And so what we do is we put these in, let them draw them out, open brood, mites jump in and have their heyday of raising families. Once these are capped over, before anybody emerges, you take them out and you freeze them for 24 to 48 hours. Then you bring it back out of the freezer and put it back in the hive, let them clean it up. Every one of these cells that contain a drone, it probably had mites on it as well. That's where mites were going. This is a way we can use these in a natural way to help us control mites from expanding. Another thing I really encourage people to do, and something that I use and found really valuable many years ago in controlling mites, is that I started using these push-in queen cages. So I go out there usually in July, early part of July, when my populations are really strong. And I have to find a way to cut down on mites. So at that point, I may still have honey supers on or something, can't use any kind of treatment. So I'll just confine the queen. This is a queen excluder material width. And so I can just cage my queen, push this down into the comb, and then I can allow the queen to be walking around. You don't even have to catch the queen. You know, like there she is, and I'll push that in and cage her. Now, other bees can take care of her because they can walk through here. She's too big, she can't walk out. She's confined, and I confine her for about 5 to 7 days, so she can't lay any eggs. If I confine her for 7 days in here, that keeps her from laying 2,000 eggs a day for 7 days. There is 14,000 less population of cells where mites could jump into. And that's 2, let's say, and conservatively, 2 mites will develop in each of those cells if they were there. So 14,000 times 2 is 28,000 mites that we could reduce or prevent by punching in this for 5 or 7 days, once in July, once in August, once in September. It's great. It's awesome. Everybody's going to want to say, where do I buy these? Where do I get these? Just get them on Amazon. You can pick these up, or your bee supply store that you love, they'll have them. But, you know, just get these. It'd be a really cool thing to try if you're wanting to stay away from some of these big gun treatments that I talked about. So push in queen cage. Now, I have one more thing to show you that's kind of large. Let me try to get it up on the table here. We still have a lot to cover on the Varroa destructor mite, and Bobblehead David says, please subscribe. He's over here today. The other day I made a video and the camera focused on his eyes, and the whole video was ruined because I was out of focus. So frustrating. But I may have to buy a pair of sunglasses for him so that the camera doesn't always focus on him. I'm always looking at my monitor, making sure that's not going on now. It's got me nervous. If any of you can 3D print a little pair of sunglasses for Bobblehead David, it'd be so nice. I need to get the camera to look at me. We look so much alike, I'm confusing my own camera. So please subscribe. He's out there for a reason. I'd like to see you guys really enjoy my passion, my love, maybe my personality for beekeeping. And I'm here to help you. And by subscribing, you can really enjoy videos that I make. Thanks so much. I do appreciate it. Let's get back into controlling the Varroa destructor. When I started beekeeping, there was just solid bottom boards. And then everybody kind of talked about how good screen bottoms boards were. And I was slow in getting into the screen bottom board, back in the 90s. But I finally got into screen bottom boards and I really like them. Now, we have a lot of these in stock. If you want to order these from our website, I'll leave links in the description below. We have got a ton of these. So I like them. I use them. And I do enjoy them. I like plastic bottom boards like this because my wooden bottom boards over the years kind of absorb a lot of moisture and kind of start rotting and not looking too good. They need painted, they fall apart, my screen pulls out. But plastic, we're not always crazy about plastic products, but this is a plastic product that you kind of want down there by the ground. The mites actually have a way to fall through this. And that's really important. Because if you're using other methods such as powdered sugar, which I talk about in this document, powdered sugar treatment, and if you use something like that, then that'd be a big help to help control mites. But when you use powdered sugar, it works a little bit. It's not the only thing that works, but it works a little bit. But when it works, the mites are going to fall out of your hive. Mites aren't really good at climbing back into a hive. They're parasites, so they fall to the ground, they get eaten up by bigger bugs. And so that way you can get rid of more mites by the ones that fall out or fall down, they're going to fall out. If you have a solid bottom board, then the mites fall to the bottom board and wait for a bee to pass by, and they do, and they just jump on another bee. So this also helps me with ventilation. I don't see nearly any bearding anymore on hot summer days in Illinois when it's pushing up toward 100. Very humid outside. The old days, my bees would beard out. I'd have a 2 or 3 foot beard in front of my hive in the grass. But with this, they can keep a little cooler in the summertime. Plus, it really was an advantage when I shifted over to screen bottom boards because not only would it get rid of mites, help me get rid of mites, but not only would it keep bees cooler on hot, humid summer days and nights, but it also allowed my honey to cure easier because bees could get rid of the moisture from the nectar to dry the nectar out so you make it into honey. So it's a real good benefit. Check out my links below if you're wanting to get some of these screen bottom boards to use to help control mites and benefit from all the other things that can come from having a screen bottom board. Now, I know you really well. Do I have my I've got my cell phone on me. Let me show you what I look at all the time when I'm making a video. That'd be good for you guys because I'm about to say that I know you really well. But this is what it looks like when I'm making a video. I'm looking at you. That's all you are to me, right? That's it. I have to just look into a camera. But I have a way of telling myself, not only am I just looking into a camera, I've got me over here that I can look, make sure things are in motion. But, I'm sitting here looking at a camera and it's challenging for me to say, I got to act like I'm talking to somebody. But I know you guys really well because you leave a lot of comments. And I think I know you. If you're like me, some of you are, I know it's hard to imagine, some of you are like me and you're thinking, I just want you to tell me what chemical or what to use and when to use it. David, give me a date and give me instructions and give me a recipe. I understand that. I'm just like you. It's just like, don't make me do all this work, right? Hey, look, I want to be honest with you. That's not how beekeeping works. Let me explain it. When you're trying to deal with mites and you want me to give you an answer, number one, I have no idea where on the planet you live. You could live in Africa. You could live in Argentina. You could live in Alabama. You could live in Canada, California, New York, Massachusetts. All those places are going to be different, and that's going to be different in how you treat for mites. So let's think about this. There are several things that are variable in telling you how to deal with your mites. And I jotted these down, by the way, but you have to deal with things like temperature. What is the current temperature in your area when you want to treat mites? Because a lot of the treatments like Apivar, Apalifar, Apigard, you have things like Formic Pro that we may want to use. These chemicals are temperature sensitive on the label. You're going to have to read what temperature you can use these mite treatments. So temperature is a big one. They also talk about the population of your hive. Some things that you use, such as acylic acid, is better in broodless situations in your hive. So it matters how much brood is in your colony when you're treating. Also, all of these various treatment programs are going to be debated on if you can treat them with the honey superon or not, because you don't want to contaminate your honey. So, and you have to deal with what season you're in. These treatments depend on that. These treatments depend on your hive population as well, and so on. So you can see why I can't give you a recipe, why I can't tell you on this date to do that, because temperatures aren't the same on every date. And your brood population isn't the same on every date, depending on where you live. And even where I live is different from year to year. So you do have to do your own research and learn. So let me tell you the most common treatments that people likely use. A big winner is Formic Pro, Apiguard, Apilife Var, acylic acid, and there are other Hop 2 or 3, Apistan. There's I don't want to exclude any or promote one over the other. Because I know that all of you are going to say, I use this one and it works for me. I'll use that and it's great for me. This one never worked and that one's better. This one killed my queen. This one didn't kill my queen. You know, I know you can say all that all day long and you're going to leave comments, but these are some of the more common ones that people use. Here's what I want you to do. I'd like for you to really study them, because I really want you to know what is the active ingredients of each one. And I want you to know, what is a temperature range where each one can be applied? Just pick the simple ones. Pick Formic Pro, Apiguard, Apilife, and acylic acid. Those are the most common ones that you hear people talk about today. So take those. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, you got 4. It's not hard to kind of make some note cards of each of these 4 and write down what is a temperature range that they can be used in. And then write down their active ingredients, amitrez or formic acid or thiamol. And just write down the active ingredients. It's easy to do. And then I want you to write down the safety equipment that you need to wear. Do I need to wear goggles, gloves, mask? You need to know these things. Follow the label. And then what you need to do next is what time of the season is it best to use this? Now, most of the ones we use have a label, and they'll say on the label most of the time when the best time of the season is to use it. Maybe in the spring, maybe in the fall, so on. And then continue to say, the label continues to tell you, right on your note card, how long must it remain in the colony? How long do I have to leave it in there before I take it out? Or does it go away by itself like Formic Pro sometimes does? Or do I take it out 42 days later? So write that on your note card. And then where and when and how to place it in the hive. Sometimes you might need a spacer to give it more room for the bees to kind of get into, like maybe the Apiguard. They need to get into the pan if you use the pull-off aluminum top. So you may have to devise something like that, but you need to say, where do I place it? How do I place it in the brood area? Just where do I, between frames of brood? And then read the label. It will all explain that to you. And one of the most important ones is, can I leave my supers on? That's important too. Also, I think we need to know the efficacy. That means how good they work. What is the percentage of that they're going to kill my mites? Why waste your time if efficacy is not that strong on it? Use something different, right? And then also, how much brood should be present when I'm using them? Like acylic acid, it's better not to have a lot of brood in there. It has a better kill because it doesn't kill below the caps. Where Formic Pro doesn't really matter because it kills under the caps. And lastly, whether you're looking for a knockdown, something to knock them down quick, or if you're looking for something that is going to keep them down. I want you to resume the role of knowing these things. Don't look on YouTube like, okay, I want to use acylic acid, so how do I do it? I'll watch a video on YouTube. You're going to be watching a video of a guy using it that doesn't live anywhere near where you live. The climate's different. His brood count is different. All these things are different, and then you're going to do what he did, but your variables are different, and you're not going to have the same results. You may have worse things happen. That's why it's so important. We just don't pick a YouTube video here and there and try to put it together. We need to know what we're dealing with before we start treating. Got a special video chosen for you guys to help you really understand how to do a testing of your mites. I think it's critical that we do an alcohol wash or powdered sugar wash, and I made a video comparing the two. Watch it right here. This is going to get you ready for the season and how to test for mites. I'll see you over there.